Hello and welcome to Atop the Fourth Wall, where bad comics burn. And we're back for our annual look at Youngblood. Some of you were disappointed by the first 3 issues of Youngblood's Strikefile, as were a lot of people who paid money for them back in the 90s as well.
Dude, the only way that I was disappointed is that there weren't more guns!
The disappointment stemmed from the books just not being very interesting, but then again, you could say that about all of Youngblood that we've seen. Youngblood Strikefile's first 3 issues told 2 stories side by side. One where Die Hard was rescuing an old colleague of his who had been kidnapped and turned into a cyborg killing machine, and the other explained the backstory of Chapel and how the US government infected him with AIDS in order to try to control him, even revealing that the government had created AIDS. Now, some of you were keen to point out that that was a legit conspiracy theory at the time, so the writer was just drawing upon then current events. I still have problems with that. For starters, perhaps it's not wise to draw upon actual conspiracy theories and calling them true in your superhero book when it's something in this vein. Stuff like Area 51 or the Phoenix Lights incident or the Tunguska event are one thing. You know, aliens and mysterious things that we don't really have an explanation for are in good fun. Taking a real-life illness that was killing real people and facing stigma and harm for their association with it, however, and then advancing a belief that could influence people in really bad ways? I'm basically saying this is the equivalent of putting in a Superman comic that vaccinations cause autism, and saying it's all true. But it's a fictional story, you might say. Yeah, but drawn upon the real world and advocating for a position that will harm people if you advance it. If you're gonna pull something like this, at least make the entire thing fictional. That, like, the vaccinations for an alien-created plague that will turn people into rocks or something, and Superman has to go and punch the aliens until they leave. Yeah, the allegory is bad, but at least you could argue that it's different enough to not be taken seriously. Don't just go and say, the government created AIDS and are using it for secret nefarious activities. I'm just saying, the government has plenty of real things we can be mad at them for. We don't have to make up stuff for that. As for people annoyed at the slower pacing of Strikefile, fair enough. Worked for me because the shorter stories are easier to review and get them over with. But issue 4, for some reason, is done in a more traditional single story style. So let's dig into Youngblood Strikefile number 4 and see what deserved a full single comic to itself.
Welcome to Atop the Fourth Wall, where bad comics burn. Linkara's gonna teach you all a lesson you won't learn. What's with these awkward subjects? What's all this art so rubbish? To anyone who's had a bad comic published, it could be your turn. Linkara, he is a man who punch sporadically or grouch. Linkara, he has his own spaceship, but he's always on his couch. Linkara, ghosts, gods, a universe in flux. Linkara, this comic sucks. Linkara.
The cover is, unsurprisingly, boring and awful. Just a shot of Badrock falling with his fists extending out in a weird foreshortening example. I get that the fists are supposed to be closer to the reader, but it feels like his head and body should be at a weirder angle given the rest of him. He's also doing this in a completely blank void, and his arms are covering up the Strikefile part of the logo. No doubt to try to sucker people into thinking this is just a regular issue of Youngblood and not its terrible companion book. That's fine though, they're both terrible! We open in Washington, D.C., a federal research facility not far from the Pentagon, also known as a bar. Shaft, Die Hard, and Badrock have been summoned to this research facility by a scientist working on some kind of secret project that Youngblood is aware of, though Badrock does not approve. Quiet down, Rock. I want to wait until we've had a chance to see what's going on down here before jumping to any conclusions. Then we'll jump to conclusions. There's an order to this, young man. So, what is this little project exactly? Why, it's rebuilding Overt Kill. Who's Overt Kill, some of you are asking? I can't recall if this is something I've talked about before, but in case I haven't, there's a weird story behind this one. In 1991 through 1992, Stan Lee hosted a series of direct-to-video documentary tapes about the comic book industry, mostly interviews of old and then-hot creators. Most famous and infamous of these was where he challenged Rob Liefeld and Todd McFarlane to draw a character given only the prompt of the name, Overkill. It's very fun to watch since, as H. Bomber Guy pointed out in a video, Stan is kind of subtly making fun of them throughout. I'm fairly certain Todd McFarlane is in on the joke, but Rob seems a bit oblivious and taking it seriously. I actually think the concept of the video itself, giving a professional comic artist a name and they have to create a character based on that in half an hour, is a fun exercise, and they did actually go into their thought processes of what they were doing. Even if it looked like pretty much all Liefeld's characters, and Todd McFarlane's thoughts were often, yeah, kids like this design element, so I'll include that. Yeah, and he was absolutely right! But the important thing here is Overkill, whom Stan expressly said, though possibly quasi-jokingly, that he owned the rights to the character. And for some reason, the two could not just leave the character be, as they renamed him Overtkill and premiered him in an issue of Spawn. And then he carried over into Youngblood and Team Youngblood, where he fought Badrock, and whatever the hell happened there brought us here to this 2-page spread we need to turn on its side. Take a good look. What you see before you is the new, improved Overtkill. We've added a cup holder. Wow, he's even bigger than I remember. Yeah, but Liefeld characters tend to inflate like balloons, so that isn't saying much. Yes, he's pretty impressive, Dr. Peterson, but unfortunately, it's my turn to cast doubts on all of this. I mean, this seems like a lot of extra bells and whistles for a colonoscopy. Shaft wants to know what guarantees they have that Overkill won't cause problems for them like before, since he apparently almost killed half the team. Dr. Peterson says that he has a personal stake in getting Overtkill under control. Overtkill was one of my greatest creations, as well as being one of my most dramatic failures. No one was more disheartened than I when we learned he was destroyed on only his second mission. Then I was able to write him off on my taxes, and that made me feel better. And no one was more appalled when Overtkill reappeared several months later, rebuilt and reprogrammed by Sicilian mob boss Luigi Bartino. I don't know, I think all the people that he killed might be a bit more appalled. Our heroes walk off, Shaft saying they'll keep an eye on things, though they're more curious about who it was that destroyed Overtkill recently. A caption box informs us that it happened over in the pages of Spawn. And man, when you think about it, Rob and Todd really were just like best buds during this time, weren't they? Youngblood and Spawn kept having crossover characters appear with one another. Anyway, while Shaft says he wants to get a follow-up report on all that, we cut to Manhattan and the office of the Mafia Don Antonio Twist. It seems he's a rival? Friend? It's not clear. Of the Mafia boss who took Overtkill originally, and he wants him back, talking to a scientist under his employ named Kendall, and some random Mafia goon who decided to awkwardly spread his legs far apart. Kendall is Dr. Peterson's brother, as I'm sure you can see the family resemblance by that decaying mushroom cap on his head that's apparently his hair. Anyway, because of the familial connection, he knows that Overtkill is back in the hands of the government, and consequently knows how to get him back. Apparently Overtkill has a homing device that they can use to locate him that was destroyed when Spawn dealt with him. You see, Wendell's been rebuilding Overtkill these past months, and all this time he's been puzzled by one little thing. My homing device! Wait, if the homing device was destroyed along with his original body, why is it there now? And if it was just part of the wreckage that he's now welding back onto Overtkill instead of using fresh parts, wouldn't he have not included it as a safety precaution since its purpose is unknown to him? So when Wendell's finally finished putting our big Sicilian cyborg back together again, all we have to do is activate the homing device and voila! He's as good as ours! What's stopping you from just activating it now, especially when your boss is yelling at you to get him back as soon as possible? You at least know where it is and can start scouting it and planning and stuff. We cut to a week later in Overtkill's repair lab. With the exception of a few superfluous accessories added here and there, Overtkill's condition remains relatively unchanged. They did add a cool flame decal that they think makes him look more rad. Despite the endless hours of labor dedicated to refurbishing his charred and battered frame, he remains as motionless as the day his fractured body was brought into the lab. Turns out Apple's anti-repair safeguards existed back then, too. All of a sudden, he activates and frees himself, attacking the guards outside his lab. What pathetic fool was ignorant enough to rebuild me before locking me up? Talk about stupid! Honestly, a more accurate tagline than the next generation of heroes. Whatever, I guess the important thing is that I'm back! You hear that, folks? Overkill is back!
I didn't even know you left.
Anyway, Badrock is admiring himself in the mirror, wearing only a hat, gloves, and some overalls, but is summoned by his communicator to go rejoin the team. It was very important we saw Badrock, and only Badrock being summoned. Otherwise, we might have, character development for someone else. Overkill murders some more guards, rambling to himself about how these guys suck and how he's so awesome, because another recurring aspect of Liefeld's characters, particularly the villains, is that they're arrogant jackasses who talk to themselves about how cool they are, despite all evidence to the contrary. He's intercepted by Shaft and Die Hard. Overkill balks at this because apparently it took 6 team members to take him down before, while this time there are only 2. I'm reminded of the Titans number 22 back in the late 90s, where Roy Harper had to take on Deathstroke the Terminator on his own, despite Deathstroke having managed to hold his own against the entire team. And then I'm reminded that I should just be rereading that much better comic instead of Youngblood, because I actually gave a damn about the characters in that book. Am I wrong? All these years later, 11 comics in Youngblood's main book, an issue of Team Youngblood, the 3 previous Strikefile issues, which were theoretically supposed to give us more insight into these characters, and it's just nothing when it comes to who these people are, why we should care about them. Sure, we got a little bit of Badrock, a moment or two from other characters, but that's it. I made an entire retrospective talking about why I loved the Titans, and that book in particular, how we'd get glimpses into their lives and what they did for fun when the masks came off. But Youngblood number 1 was the first comic review I ever wrote back when I did text reviews in 2007, and even after all this time, I still don't know what the hell Die Hard's deal is. I don't know Vogue's story, why Shaft is Shaft. It's just nothing but this. Empty, crappy fight scenes with huge, ugly sacks of meat that are supposed to be intimidating, except they all look the same. But see, it's cool that Badrock is now bigger than Overkill and punching him in a 2-page spread. Aren't you impressed by how cool this moment is? Be impressed, damn it! Badrock punches him again, but for some reason this causes him to yell, "Yarg!" I mean, I know this was all painful for me, but I didn't know the same thing was true for them. They fight for a couple pages. This is really starting to get kind of old, so how about we hurry up and get this over with? The attitude of most people reading this. Shaft shoots some... Well, they don't say exactly what they are, but I think they're some kind of acid arrows that start breaking apart his body. As bits of him start falling off, Overkill decides on the best strategy to finally escape his capture: eject his head, which can fly around on its own. Now, if you'll excuse me, I think it's about time I head out! Okay, comic, you get 1 point for that pun. Shaft's face right here kind of says it all, doesn't it? Was this a feature that Peterson put on him? Why? Jeez, Overkill, enough of these head games. Hey, look, Rob Liefeld found an even lazier way to draw a character. What's actually acting as the fuel for him to fly like that? Is he using up bits of his brain for this? How is he navigating like this? Are his teeth just like controls that he operates with his tongue? What's great is that if Overkill has an action figure, the head popping off like this just means it's comic accurate. Do you think he ever knocks his own head off while he's brushing his teeth? Even better, can the body move independently of him? Can he control it remotely? You've heard of arms fall off lad, now meet his cousin, head fall off man. Overkill used to have hair, but he accidentally lit it on fire from his propulsion jets. Whoa now, Overkill, I don't want you to get ahead of things. If Youngblood defeats him again, they can put his head on a board as a trophy really easily. Man, when Peterson finds out what happened, heads will roll. Or fly. You really should be wearing a football helmet or something for safety. How do you think he lost that eye? Geez, when he said a little off the top, I don't think this is quite what he meant. And finally, hey everybody, I just wanted to give you the heads up on this character! I have been doing this for 15 years. The head flies off past them, Die Hard in pursuit, though inexplicably the head is faster than him. He actually manages to fly out of the building and into the upper atmosphere. Die Hard unable to follow because a lack of oxygen freezes up his cybernetic sensors. He falls back to the ground, but I guess he only weighs, like, a few ounces because this does not kill or seriously damage him in any way when he hits the ground. Like, how the hell does Die Hard not win every battle if he's that durable? Even Superman would need a minute to shake off a fall like that. We cut back over to Twist, who wants to find Kendall so he can learn where Overt Kill is. Humph! Bubble-headed techno-geek, if that clown doesn't have a reasonable explanation, I'm gonna have him killed so many ways he'll wish he was... he says that, but I bet he gets bored after the third way of killing, and the rest are just variations on stabbing him. And so our comic ends with the arrival of Overt Kill's flying head crashing through the roof and down onto his desk. Long time no see, Mr. Twist. We need to talk. I'm that paperweight you abandoned at your old office. This comic sucks and did not need to be 30 pages long. Why was this in Youngblood's Strikefile? It felt like just a regular terrible issue of Youngblood, featuring nothing interesting about our heroes and a story, with the biggest finger quotes I can use, that's just an excuse to have a fight scene with Overt Kill. I know you can say that about a lot of Youngblood issues, but this one especially, when Strikefile is supposed to be a book focusing in on individual characters and telling stories with them. What do we get here? Badrock posing in front of a mirror saying he looks awesome. That's it. The rest is dull and tells us nothing new, nothing that we'd want to know more about. The most entertaining thing here is that Overt Kill can eject his head and have it fly around, but that's because it's so goofy compared to how lifeless the rest of the book is. It's not even like it's telling us to continue the story in Team Youngblood or something. It's just... the end? With the question mark there, as if the audience was really invested in some mafia guy doing something nefarious with a cyborg head and wondering if we'd see more. Probably at some point, but certainly not whenever we look at Strikefile again. Next time, we're in for the first part of a retrospective. There are still plenty of heroes I can spotlight, but let's examine one of the most critically acclaimed non-superhero comic series of all time with Neil Gaiman's Sandman. Long time no see, Mr. Twist. We need to talk. But first, I really hate to ask, but my nose has been itching for the last hour and, well... Hello, my friends. Please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and click the bell for notifications on new video releases. If you'd like to support future videos, you can check out my Patreon or purchase a t-shirt via Teespring or Shark Robot. Thanks for watching.